Tonight on Y News. Lieutenant Colonel Ferdinand Marcelino voluntarily surrenders to the AFP Provost Marshal General today. The Department of Justice is confident that President Rodrigo Duterte will pardon all 134 old-age prisoners this year.
The Department of Budget and Management confirms completion of the salary increase of military and police personnel by the end of January 2018. The lower house targets to enact the substitute bill on freedom of information by the middle of this year.
The Philippine National Police hails its no muzzle ceiling policy of police service firearms with the reduction of incidents of indiscriminate firing in 2016. And the Bureau of Fisheries and Aquatic Resources warns against consumption of shellfish from Western Samar due to red tide contamination.
Good evening. AFP Public Affairs Chief Marine Colonel Edgar Arevalo confirms the surrender of Lieutenant Colonel Ferdinand Marcelino to the Provost Marshal General today. Marcelino was accompanied by his sister on his way to the AFP. Upon arrival, Marcelino went through the requisite processing. He will be confined at the Military Police Custodial Facility at Camp Aguinaldo pending the decision of the court on the motion for custody to be filed by Marcelino's counsel. His legal counsel will file a petition for custody of the AFP for protection. Secretary Vitaliano Aguirre today announces the possible release this year of 134 old-aged prisoners at the new Bilibid Prisons and Correctional Institute for Women. Grace Casin will tell us why.
The Department of Justice says it will remind President Rodrigo Duterte about the granting of pardon to 134 aged prisoners after the government unintentionally overlooked its promise due to the president's full-pack appointment and work schedule. In a press briefing today, Secretary Vitaliano Aguirre vows to resubmit to President Duterte the names of prisoners aged 70 years old and above who have been detained for more than 40 years now. 2 of them will be granted with absolute pardon, 18 with conditional pardon without parole, 14 with conditional pardon with parole, and 100 will get commutation of sentence.
Itong commutation of sentence, they will be released when they've reached serving the commuted sentence. Kaya yung iba dito ay maaaring January, February, March, April. But on total nila is 127.
Aguirre says this is the first time that government will grant executive clemencies. None of the previous administrations was able to do so.
They only approved one commutation, and when it was released, the commutation, 2 weeks nang patay yung taong i-release.
Secretary Aguirre assures that they will not grant parole to high-profile inmates. In November last year, President Duterte has granted absolute pardon to actor Robin Padilla, who was imprisoned due to an illegal possession of firearms case in 1994. Grace Casin, UNTV News and Rescue, Department of Justice.
The Department of Budget and Management, or DBM, confirms that by the end of January 2018, soldiers and police will receive the completion of their salary increase. Aga Kaakbay will tell us why.
The way I see it, as far as the military is concerned, we would be able to comply with the desire of the President to double their take-home pay by January of 2018.
Budget Secretary Benjamin Diokno confirms that the second tranche of salary increase for military and police personnel will be released this month. The said increase is part of the 4-tranche salary adjustment program that aims to double the take-home pay of uniformed personnel by January 2018. Diokno explains that however, the Congress should pass a law on the increase in the take-home pay of police and military enlisted personnel.
The bill seeking salary adjustment requires congressional approval, and we're ready. I have actually submitted to the Office of the President a copy of the bill, and this would only require joint joint resolution from both the Senate and the House.
The existing law states that once the basic pay for active personnel increases, retirees should also enjoy the same increase in their pension. That's why the total amount of increase in compensation for active personnel is being divided in a form of a hazard or combat pay. Meanwhile, the said increase is a big help for the military and police personnel.
So, if it happens this year, thank you very much. Malaking tulong sa mapalaki yung take-home pay ng ating police. But at the end of the day, we are here at the PA as member of the Philippine National Police to provide service. Uunahin ho namin yung serbisyo, pagiging professional.
Aga Akba, UNTV News and Rescue, Malacanang.
One of the Department of Budget and Management's recommendations to President Rodrigo Duterte is for the Social Security System, or SSS, to resolve its pension hike issue. Rosalie Cos will tell us why.
As far as the Department of Budget and Management is concerned, President Rodrigo Duterte should not be the one to resolve the issue on increasing the pension of Social Security System pensioners. Budget Secretary Benjamin Jokno says it is the SSS Board of Trustees that should find ways of resolving it.
To me, it's unfair to give the problem to him. In fact, it's unfair for Congress to have passed that law, which, as you know, President Aquino vetoed. No? It should not have reached the President's desk. The Board of Trustees should exercise leadership and say, no, we cannot do it unless we do the following things.
The Secretary also says the fund of the National Treasury, coming from taxpayers who are not all SSS members, should not be used to finance the private pension, given the fact that not all taxpayers have jobs.
I don't think it is fair to say use the taxpayers' money to subsidize the benefits of the pension members, the SSS members, right? So if there's any solution, I think they should find it within the system.
Another recommendation of DBM for SSS is to increase the member contribution, although not immediately, but once the tax reform is already approved. SSS should also improve its collections, especially from corporations that fail to remit regularly. Jokno also says the president cannot be blamed even if he promised to increase the SSS pension during the campaign period.
Iba yung candidate Duterte sa President Duterte. And you see that all over, even worldwide. May napapangako ka na pagka tingnan mo yung datos, hindi pala pwede.
Rosalie Cos, UNTV News and Rescue, Malacanang.
The Department of Justice has opted to reschedule the preliminary investigation against the 6 suspects in the 3 billion peso drug buy-bust operation in San Juan. Grace Casin will tell us why.
Assistant State Prosecutor Mary Jane Citat today has decided to reset the hearing on the big-time drug buy-bust operation in San Juan. This after the 3 Chinese nationals implicated in the case failed to submit their counter-affidavit. They even rejected the lawyer provided by the Public Attorney's Office.
In the interest of justice, the reception of the counter-affidavit for the Chinese respondents is reset to Friday, January 6, 10 a.m. The case shall be submitted for resolution with or without the counter-affidavits of the Chinese respondents. Everyone is notified.
Meanwhile, 3 Filipino suspects, one of them a minor, were able to file a counter-affidavit today. The 6 suspects were arrested in a raid at Barangay Little Baguio in San Juan City on December 23, 2016. 100 pieces of traveling bags, each containing 10 kilograms of shabu, were seized by NBI operatives during the raid. Overall, the substance totaled to 1,100 kilograms, amounting to 3 billion pesos. The suspects are now facing charges for violation of Republic Act No. 9165 or the Comprehensive Dangerous Drug Act of 2002 for manufacture and trading of illegal drugs. Grace Casin, UNTV News and Rescue, Department of Justice.
The Philippine National Police considers its move not to seal the gun muzzles of the service firearms of police personnel a success. Aga Akbay will tell us why.
The number of policemen who illegally fired their firearms during the New Year revelry has declined, based on reports from the Philippine National Police. Because of this, the PNP considers its move to not seal the gun muzzles of cops across the country a success. Based on data, only one case of indiscriminate firing was reported this year, which is lower than the 12 reported during the same period in 2014, 2 in 2015, and another 2 in 2016. PNP spokesperson Police Senior Superintendent Leonardo Carlos says they trusted the cops and they are not disappointed based on the data they have.
As of today, 11:30 a.m. of January 3, makita natin na mas less yung insidente. So, involvement of the police, we have 1 right now.
Despite this, Carlos says they are waiting for 4 policemen to explain their side after they were reported to have used their firearms despite the prohibition. If they fail to report within 10 days, they will be considered a wool.
Let's look at the result dun sa 4 na kailangan hong mag-explain at makita natin na kung talaga ho sila yung involved dun o hindi.
Carlos explains the decline in the number of indiscriminate firing is due to the full force deployment of cops for 12 hours from 5 p.m. of December 31 to 5 a.m. of January 1, in accordance with the directive of PNP Chief Police Director General Ronald De La Rosa. He says this is also aside from the prompt reporting of complaints of the public. Aga Kakba, UNTV News and Rescue, Quezon City.
The Department of Health reports that the number of victims who sustained firecracker-related injuries has reached 581. Of this number, 578 were injured for using firecrackers, while 3 others accidentally ingested firecracker powder. 186 of those injured used piccolo, a prohibited firecracker. 98 sustained eye injuries. 467 of the victims are males. 322 of them are children. DOH says the total figure is 34% lower compared to the 904 recorded cases in the same period last year. The Land Transportation Franchising and Regulatory Board is looking into the revision of a department order allowing transport network companies to regulate the fare among transport network vehicle services. Roby De Guzman will tell us why.
Under the Department Order 2015 Series 11 of the Transportation Department, the transport network companies has the power to regulate the fare being imposed to the riders of the transport network vehicle services. But recently, the Land Transportation Franchising and Regulatory Board has been receiving several complaints of unreasonable surge pricing. Some drivers of TNVS have explained that the amount of price surge depends on the location of the passenger.
Kung si pasahero po ay nanggaling po sa Makati at wala pong sasakyan sa within Makati at manggagaling ang sasakyan sa bandang Mandaluyong, nakakaroon po tayo ng price surge. Kasi po, manggagaling pa po ang sasakyan natin from Mandaluyong pa po, ma'am. Sa traffic din po, isa rin po sa mga kino-consider po yan ng system.
Because of this, the LTFRB wants to revise the said department order to protect and ensure the welfare of the riding public.
And we have to do this to set the record straight, to put things in order, and to put some regulation on the TNCs and TNVS, because right now it's all their game, not to the terms of LTFRB.
Meanwhile, the Philippine Transport Network Organization, a group of TNVS drivers, clarified that there is no truth to the alleged planned strike by all drivers opposing the capping of surge pricing. Instead of a strike, the group has decided to hold a meeting which is set on Friday to tackle all the concerns and complaints of the TNVS drivers that they want to present to the LTFRB and transport network companies. Roby De Guzman, UNTV News and Rescue, Philippines.
Next in Y News. The Bureau of Fisheries and Aquatic Resources temporarily bans consumption of shellfish from Western Samar contaminated with red tide toxins.
Pag-asa plans to decommission names of disastrous tropical cyclones in 2016.
The Department of Health clarifies that there is no order from the Food and Drug Administration to stop the distribution of anti-dengue vaccines in schools.
Y News will be right back.
Yun hong issue nung BFP. Kasi kausap ko nga dito si Chief Inspector Ian Manan. Sabi niya, mas gusto nga namin yun maimbestigahan.
This transaction nangyari ito noong 2015. What I did, sinulatan ko yung chief ng Bureau of Fire requesting yung kontrata. Kinumpute namin, it cost 6.2 million. Ginawa namin investigation to check kung merong collusion between the importers and then the Bureau officials. So, meron na tayong sinuspindi at kinakasuhan na 18 Bureau officials.
House is likely to pass into law a substitute Freedom of Information bill this year. Nel Maribuhok will tell us why.
Vice Chairman of the House Committee on Public Information and Yakap Party List Representative Ben-Hur Lopez says the substitute Freedom of Information bill may be passed into law in the middle of 2017.
Even the President said na nauna na ako sa inyo, meron na akong draft even before nag-start ang Congress. With that, talagang kino-consider siya ng Congress as urgent.
The controversial bill is currently being finalized by the Technical Working Group for presentation in the House Committee on Rules in the hopes that it will be urgently tackled in the plenary by February or March. The substitute Freedom of Information bill in the lower house has consolidation of 33 bills with 8 exemptions. These include threats to national security, diplomatic relations, advice to the executive that may affect the president's decision, depriving persons right to fair trial, invasion of a person's privacy, executive sessions of Congress, trade secrets, and confidential source. These provisions are currently under thorough study by the committee.
The availability ng data na pwedeng ilagay on the net. And then pag nilagay natin, for example, sa internet yung ganitong data, how safe are we?
According to Lopez, the FOI substitute is in line with the Executive Order number 2 that was released by Malacanang.
Para wala na masyadong hindi na magtatagal, halos kaparallel ng kung ano ang FOI ng say Senate and then yun din yung mandate ng sa Presidente. So mas mapapabilis. Any na lang na pagbabago na ganyan na nakita natin na uy mali, uy tama, uy ganyan, we can do it on the next na lang.
Nel Maribuhok, UNTV News and Rescue, House of Representatives.
The Bureau of Fisheries and Aquatic Resources, or BFAR, has banned the consumption of shellfish products such as clams and oysters in areas positive for red tide toxins in Western Samar. Areas affected by the toxins are Irong-Irong and Cambatutay Bays in Western Samar, Matarinao Bay in Eastern Samar, Kalubian and Carigara Bay in Leyte, the coastal waters of Biliran Province, of Gigantes Islands in Carles, Iloilo, and of Dawis and Tagbilaran City in Bohol. Meanwhile, BFAR says other marine products such as fish, shrimp, squid, and crabs from the said areas are safe to eat, but the agency advises the public to properly wash and cook them before eating.
The Bureau of Fisheries and Aquatic Resources expresses concern over the decline in production of milkfish in Tacloban City. Ray Pelayo will tell us why.
The Bureau of Fisheries and Aquatic Resources, or BFAR, says the Fisher Folks Association of Tacloban North has been producing good quality of milkfish in the recent years. In fact, Fisher Folks were able to harvest around 3,000 kilograms of milkfish per fish cage in Tacloban North based on the City Agriculturist Office. However, it becomes alarming that recently there is a decline in the production of milkfish since the housing development project in Tagpuro area has started.
Baka yung mga housing na bago ngayon na tinayo, dala ng pag-dredge o pag-ano ng mga mountains, di ba? Siguro yung residue na pupunta dito sa dagat.
For this reason, BFAR is conducting a study to determine the main cause behind the drop in milkfish production in the area. Meanwhile, as additional income to fisher folks, the agency is planning to establish a fish processing plant through the local government unit.
Most probably bottling of bangus. We have to consider also the potential market. Since if we will consider the volume, maybe we have also to consider the exporting the product.
The agency is also planning to hold trainings and put up a water source project in the northern part of the city. It will also distribute gill nets, crab pot, and fish pot to fisher folks based on recommendation by the local government unit. Ray Pilayo, UNTV News and Rescue, Philippines.
A man was stabbed to death while 3 others were severely wounded in Santa Rosa, Laguna last night. Bernardadis will tell us why.
A victim of stabbing was declared dead on arrival at the Santa Rosa Community Hospital last night. The victim, identified as Jesus Oliveros, sustained stab wounds in his left flank after he tried to pacify a fight between his convive and the suspect in Barangay Sinalhan, Santa Rosa, Laguna. Aside from the fatality, 3 more victims of the stabbing are currently being treated at the Philippine General Hospital.
Sumugod na po yung suspect. Kala na po namin, sutukan lang. Yung po pala, may hawak na siya na batalin. Yun na po nagtuloy-tuloy hanggang sa nadamay na nga po yung si Tito Jess ko po, pati yung isa naming gap.
The suspect, identified as Loreto Coral, is currently detained at the Santa Rosa Police Station and will face charges of homicide and multiple frustrated homicide. Bernardadis, UNTV News and Rescue, Philippines.
Some poor families from different parts of the country expressed their gratitude to UNTV and the Members Church of God International. Leslie Longboan tells us why.
UNTV, together with Members Church of God International, visited different areas in the country to provide assistance to our poor fellow men. In Masantol, Pampanga, a stroke victim who still strives to work for his family was delighted after receiving food items from the group.
Nagpapasalamat po kay Kuya, kahit po paano, naalala po kaming mahirap. Sana po nagpapasalamat po sa Panginoon. Sana po tuloy-tuloy po yung pag-ano po sa mga tao, yung mga kailangan pong tulong. Salamat po.
Jocelyn of Hagonoy, Bulacan is also among the beneficiaries of the group's gift giving. The 31-year-old mother accepts laundry to help his husband send their 3 children to school.
Minimum paano nyo na pagkakasya yung minimum na yun?
Hirap po budget. Lalo po pag kami pasok. Bayarin sa school.
Meanwhile, the group also visited the humble abode of a widower in Puerto Princesa City in Palawan. 56-year-old Romeo lives with his child who is suffering from hydrocephalus. Romeo has no permanent job, that's why there are times when they have no food to eat. But that evening, they were full.
Pasalamat po ako sa UNTV, kay Kuya Daniel, sa Church of God, sa mga members ng Church of God International, at kay Brad Eli Soriano. Maraming salamat po. Salamat po sa Diyos.
In Cebu, 2 poor families expressed their gratitude upon unexpectedly receiving small gifts and food items from UNTV and MCGI. Both the families of Patrocino, who was paralyzed since last year, and Carlito, who works as a carpenter, struggle to make ends meet.
Buong salamat kaniya og sa mga kubanan. Nagpasalamat ko nga tagaan gyapon sila may lawas o mga hatagan sa Ginoo og taas ang kinabuhi.
The yearly gift giving is just one of the activities of UNTV and MCGI aimed at reaching out to our needy fellow men. Leslie Longbowen for Serbisyong Kasangbahay.
The Department of Health clarifies that the Food and Drug Administration did not order a halt in the distribution of dengue vaccines in schools. Aiko Miguel tells us why.
DOH spokesperson Assistant Secretary Eric Tayag says the school-based immunization program against dengue is still ongoing.
Yung vaccine, ongoing second dose namin.
This is because the Food and Drug Administration or FDA has not ordered a halt in the use of Dengvaxia for the dengue vaccination of children at school campuses. Tayag clarifies that what the FDA issued against the manufacturer of Dengvaxia is an order in connection with its violation of the Administrative Order Number 65, Series of 1989, or the prohibiting advertisement in any form of prescription or ethical drug. Tayag further notes that the issuance has nothing to do with the quality of the dengue vaccine.
Yung procedure, hindi nila sinunod kung ano yung procedure na yun, na baka hindi sila nagpaalam.
In a statement, the manufacturer of Dengvaxia clarifies that the vaccine is WHO approved. In terms of airing of medical or related advertisements, FDA is the one responsible for determining if a manufacturer has violated laws or rules.
We leave it sa FDA, yung sa sanctions. Kasi ang sinasabi lang ng FDA, dapat wala na silang ma-monitor ng mga ads because they already made a decision.
FDA is still waiting for the response of the manufacturer regarding the said violation. Aiko Miguel, UNTV News and Rescue, Department of Health.
The northeast monsoon is continuously affecting Luzon and Visayas. The Philippine Atmospheric, Geophysical and Astronomical Services Administration or PAG-ASA says light rains will be experienced in Cagayan Valley, Cordillera, Bicol, Mimaropa, Quezon Province, Aurora and Eastern Visayas. Isolated light rains will prevail over the rest of Luzon and Visayas. Cloudy skies with light to moderate rains will also be experienced in Caraga and Davao region and also in Soxargen. Isolated rain showers and thunderstorms will prevail over the rest of Mindanao. The Philippine Atmospheric, Geophysical and Astronomical Services Administration is planning to decommission the names of tropical cyclones that severely affected the country in 2016. Ray Palayo will tell us why.
Several typhoons in 2016 have left the country billions of pesos in damages. Some of them are Typhoon Ferdy, which left more than 3.61 billion pesos in infra and agri damages. Karen cost almost 4 billion pesos, Super Typhoon Lawin with 3.7 and Nina with more than 5 billion pesos. PAG-ASA said they are in process of decommissioning the tropical cyclone names that severely affected the country, but they are also considering the number of casualties. There are 4 sets of cyclones being used. On the 5th year, the first set will be reused. PAG-ASA decommissions names of typhoons that have caused significant damage to prevent the public from mistakenly thinking that the catastrophic typhoon has come back to hit the country once more.
At least naka-damage po siya sa infrastructure na totaling about 1 billion at meron pong certain number of person yung at least yung naapektuhan or namatay.
PAG-ASA also mentioned the decadal variability on tropical cyclones, citing what happened in Bicol recently when Typhoon Nina hit the region in December 2016. 10 years prior, the area was hit by Typhoon Reming in 2006 and Typhoon Orion in 1995. This climate is just normal for PAG-ASA.
Sample sa may Bicol area. So recently napapansin nila hindi sila masyadong tinatamaan ng bagyo. But then bumabalik siya na naman yung palagi dadaanan ng mga bagyo.
Ray Pilayo, UNTV News and Rescue, Quezon City.
Coming up, the annual Festival of Roses in Pasadena, California welcomes 2017 with music and colorful floats.
The Vietnam Health Ministry orders a hospital to submit a report on a medical malpractice case that happened 18 years ago.
And bombed out Aleppo soap maker revives an old age tradition and found new hope in Paris, France.
More from Y News after this break.
Of the whole responsibility of being a news anchor is public service. Given the situation, we have to be able to help other people. But of course, you do also have to have that skill to assess the situation so you don't put yourself in harm's way as well. It's more important that we get to practice the skills regularly, and that's the time that I can say I'd be confident. Gerry Alcantara, trained rescuer and news anchor, UNTV News and Rescue.
Serbisyong taus-pusong ihahatid sa ating mga kababayan. Serbisyong maaasahan anumang oras ninyong kailangan. Serbisyong abot kamay. Ito ang serbisyong kasangbahay. Sabay ang mapapanood sa UNTV at mapapakinggan sa Radyo La Verdad 1350.
Alam niyo ba na maaaring i-withdraw ang contribution sa pag-ibig? Kung ang pag-ibig member ay may 240 contributions o katumbas ng 20-year maturity, nasa retirement age, permanenteng maninirahan na sa ibang bansa, may permanent disability, naalis sa trabaho dahil nagkasakit, namatay at may beneficiaries. Para sa ibang impormasyon, pumunta sa Alimbang Pag-ibig Branch. Isang paalala, hatid ng serbisyong kasambahay at UNTV, your public service channel.
No security threat can stop LA's annual Rose Parade. Christy Rosacia will tell us why.
The 128th Tournament of Roses Parade thrilled spectators on Monday who gathered along the route to see the splendor of the elaborate floats. The parade's theme this year is Echoes of Success, which featured 40 elaborate floats, marching bands, and equestrian units. The celebration is a festival of flowers, music, and sports, requires 935 volunteers and 80 hours of work, according to organizers. The day's events are highlighted by the granddaddy of college football bowls, the Rose Bowl, where the University of Southern California Trojans will take on the Pennsylvania State University Nittany Lions. The Polynesian catamaran produced by the group Donate Life celebrated the gift of life through organ donation. Their float featured 60 flower portraits of organ donors as well as 24 transplant recipients riding the float. A float from the city of Los Angeles celebrated its bid to host the 2024 Olympics. It was packed with real-life Olympians including Nadia Comaneci, Bart Conner, and April Ross. Parade rules mandate that all all surfaces of the float framework must be covered in natural materials such as flowers, plants, seeds, vegetables, nuts, or bark. There was heightened security for this year's parade with sturdier barricades, bomb-sniffing dogs, and more checkpoints to protect the hundreds of thousands of people expected to crowd the streets of Pasadena.
Ladies and gentlemen,
The Festival of Roses is America's way of greeting the world on the first day of each year, and a salute to the community, spirit, and love of pageantry that have thrived in Pasadena for more than 100 years. Crystal Sacia, UNTV News and Rescue, Pasadena, California.
Migrants in the United States and Mexico are anxious days before Donald Trump officially takes over. Aaron Romero tells us why.
In central Mexico's Mezquital Valley, people are afraid that remittances from family members abroad, a primary source of funding for such purchases, may soon dry up. During the holiday season, residents have fretted about what a Trump presidency will mean for them and family members working in the United States. Remittances jumped nearly 25% to almost $2.4 billion in November from a year earlier, the biggest annual increase for any month since March 2006, according to the Mexican Central Bank.
Sí, nosotros aquí casi no hay dinero. Aquí casi no tenemos nada, aquí casi no hay trabajo. Pues yo digo que si mandan a nuestros emigrantes aquí, va a haber más pobreza, porque allá sí tienen trabajo, nos ayuda a mandar un poquito para nosotros.
In recent months, Trump has not elaborated on his threat to block money transfers, and a 10-point immigration plan on his transition website makes no mention of the subject. But the possibility is affecting migrants' remittance decisions. Remittances have become a huge prop for the Mexican economy compared to the $18.5 billion in revenue from oil exports in 2015, or nearly $340 billion in manufactured goods, according to the National Statistics Agency. In Florida, migrants say they sent more money than usual this holiday season in case they are unable to do so once Trump takes office.
La mayoría está consciente de que en cualquier momento puede haber una ley que les impida estar aquí y tengan que irse a su casa, tengan que regresar a su país, no solo de México.
Aaron Romero, UNTV News and Rescue, New York.
A fire broke out in the coastal Chilean city of Valparaiso on Monday evening, burning at least 100 homes, prompting the evacuation of about 400 people. Chilean Interior Ministry says 19 people had been slightly injured, including 16 suffering from respiratory issues. According to the government, investigators had been sent in to determine the cause of the fire. Authorities are still working on the number of victims.
Mira, todavía no se tiene una contabilización muy fina, dado que la municipalidad está realizando recién la contabilización, pero por lo menos deben haber alrededor de unas 100 casas afectadas.
Fear and shock linger in the Istanbul neighborhood in Turkey. Bong Dokeza will tell us why.
The New Year terror attack on an Istanbul nightclub has left fear lingering in the surrounding neighborhoods and brought depression to shops along the nearby streets. The attack on the Reina nightclub in the early hours of Sunday killed 39 and left over 60 injured. The suspect is still on the run as of Monday afternoon. Still covered with New Year decorations, the Reina nightclub remained sealed off and surrounded by police officers stationed at the scene. They had been carrying out checks on passing pedestrians and vehicles one day after the attack. Across the street from the club, one company had new surveillance camera installed as security concerns remained high in the wake of the attack. Many of the residents appear to be still recovering from the shock.
Sesleri duyar duyulmaz tabii ki arkadaşımı aradım. Orada 15 yıldan beri çalışan Selçuk Şahinli'nin arkadaşımız var. Merak ettik, aradık. Abi dedi çok fena buralar dedi. Her yerde mermi sesleri geliyordu. Tabii o arada giremedik. Güvenlik önlemleri aldılar. Polisler falan vardı. Sonra işte zaman geçtikçe katliamın daha büyük olduğunu anladık.
The Orticoy neighborhood where the arena is located is one of the Istanbul's famous consumer attractions, packed with restaurants and nightclubs, but many have temporarily closed after the attack. The ones that are still open have faced a sharp decline in business. Residents fear it may take months for the neighborhood to recover to its former prosperity.
Böyle dışarı çıkmazdık, bütün serviste aksamalar, yani bununla ilgili çok aşırı bir iş düşüşlüğü yaşadık. Bayağı bir etkilendik diyebiliriz yani işle alakalı. Gerçi bu ortalama 100-150 kişi günlük ortalama ağırlama yapardık ama şu anda %60-%70 oranında bir düşüş var.
Bong Duquesa, UNTV News and Rescue, Middle East.
The Vietnam Health Ministry orders a hospital to submit a report on a medical malpractice case that happened almost 2 decades ago. Lloyd De La Cruz will tell us why.
Specialist surgeons flew from Hanoi to assist at the operation in Thanh Nguyen province in the north of the country. The 54-year-old patient visited the hospital after being involved in a road accident last month, and an ultrasound test seemed to show a sharp instrument lying to the left of his stomach. A second check in the hospital in his nearby home province of Ba Can removed any doubt. There was a 15-centimeter or 6-inch pair of surgical scissors nestling next to his colon. Ma Van Nyat says they may have been left inside him during a 1998 operation at Ba Can General Hospital following another road accident.
Sau khi đó thì về thì bụng nó vẫn có triệu chứng tức là đau, nhưng mà đau âm ỉ và được cũng chi đi kiểm tra ở bệnh xá thì là cho là đau dạ dày và mua thuốc giảm đau của dạ dày về uống.
His stomach pain did not respond to painkillers. The surgeons who carried out the 3-hour procedure note that the rusty handles of the scissors had become stuck to some nearby organs. The health ministry has ordered Ba Can General Hospital to report on who may have left the scissors in Mr. Ma by the end of the week. Hospital director Chi Long says she will do what she can, but doctors say that hospitals rarely keep patient records for more than 15 years.
Cái mổ đó gồm những ai và dù có nghỉ hưu mà thì chúng tôi cũng sẽ thông báo cho các cá nhân đó là cái sự việc đã xảy ra trong cái thời gian mà cán bộ đó công tác, thì cũng là cái bài học để cho tất cả các bác sĩ, đặc biệt là các bác sĩ có phẫu thuật cầm tay dao và các cái tip dụng cụ cũng phải là một cái bài học sâu sắc, rút kinh nghiệm.
As for Mr. Ma, he is expected to return home next week. Lloyd De La Cruz, UNTV News and Rescue, Ho Chi Minh City, Vietnam.
Another Brazilian player adds to the roster of the Shanghai SIPG. Meanwhile, the French capital's bid for the 2024 Olympic Games continues. Aaron Romero tells us why.
Paris is being eyed to win the right to host the 2024 Olympic Games, but the French capital knows that the hardest part is yet to come. That is, convincing the International Olympic Committee its bid is the strongest. Paris was the host of the 1924 Olympic Games. The winner of the 3-horse race between Los Angeles, Paris, and Budapest will be announced by the IOC on September 13, 2017 in Lima. But despite the race favoring the French capital so far, 3-time Olympic canoeing champion Tony Estanguet, who leads the candidacy along with former International Rugby Board President Bernard Lapasset, says they needed to stay focused until the very end.
J'ai bien conscience qu'un match, ça se gagne le jour J. Et quelle que soit la situation, quand on partira à Lima, je crois qu'il faudra être bon jusqu'à la dernière seconde. Voilà. Ne commettre aucune erreur et pendant la présentation finale et pendant les relations que l'on aura sur place avec les membres du CIO.
Meanwhile, Brazilian international midfielder Oscar dos Santos Ebwaba Jr., popularly known as Oscar, arrives in Shanghai as he joins Chinese club Shanghai SIPG from Chelsea. The 25-year-old, who scored 38 goals in 203 appearances for Chelsea, had lifted the Premier League, League Cup, and Europa League during his 4.5-year spell at the club. With compatriots Hulk and Alcantara plying their trade at Shanghai, Oscar becomes the latest Brazilian to join the Chinese Super League team. SIPG Shanghai Football Club said Oscar, along with the team, will conduct their winter training sessions in Doha. Aaron Romero, UNTV News and Rescue, New York.
Amazon.com Inc. has filed for a patent to use airships to store products and to serve as a base for delivery drones. According to the patent application, drones launched from the so-called Airborne Fulfillment Centers, or AFCs, would use far less power than those launched from the ground. The AFCs would hover at about 45,000 feet and be restocked and resupplied by shuttles or smaller ships. Amazon has laid out plans to start using drones for deliveries next year, but has not issued any comment yet on the matter. Aleppo's most famous beauty product has become a collateral damage in the civil war, but found refuge in Paris suburb. Gerry will tell us why.
Scientist Hassan Harastani was working in a factory in Aleppo but fled the war and the city in 2012 to this Paris suburb, Saint-Denis, southeast of Paris. In Saint-Denis, he went on to establish a soap-making laboratory, mixing ingredients in large vats and slicing the soap into cubes. Harastani said he inherited the know-how from his father. He said he keeps the soaps 100% natural, without coloring, preservatives, or chemical fragrances, but the process is painstaking. It involves 3 days of mixing ingredients and cooking the soap to eliminate acidity, drying the soap in trays for at least 12 hours, slicing and stamping, and then 6 months of additional drying.
Soap, for example, in Syria, it's considered like food. If someone, for example, this is not a joke, but this is a real thing. If one, for example, want to go to Aleppo, they ask him to bring him as a gift soap.
The scientist soap maker was invented to France by Franco-Syrian doctor Samir Constantini, who was already importing soap from the Syrian factory where Harastani worked. Constantini was peddling Aleppo soap door-to-door in pharmacies 15 years ago, but it was not in high demand then. Today, the products are distributed in a shop in Angers in western France, in pharmacies, organic stores, and over the internet.
À l'étranger, le Made in France a une excellente réputation. Ce que je ne savais pas, dès que vous proposez des cosmétiques Made in France, c'est un gage de très grande qualité. Les meilleurs cosmétiques au monde sont les cosmétiques Made in France.
Despite the war, Constantini says he still manages to import some boxes of soap made in northern Syria.
Oui, c'est vrai que Alep est sinistré. Les gens sont dehors dans les rues, n'ont plus d'habitation. Et nous ici, nous fabriquons le savon d'Alep selon la tradition. Et c'est un peu pour nous une façon de continuer, de perpétuer cette tradition de notre chère Alep, notre chère Syrie.
Gerry, UNTV News and Rescue, Paris, France.
Those are the reasons behind the news, January 3, 2016. I'm Angelo Castro III.
Reasons we delivered to you as they unfold. I'm Gerry Alcantara.
And I'm Darlene Basingan, because we need to know.
We will always ask why. Thank you for watching Why News.